we talked about the anatomy of an HTML element. So, in between the angle brackets, what do we call that whole thing in between the angle brackets? Say again? Opening tag? Yup. And this one? Closing tag. So those are tags. Yup. The whole dang thing is an element. What about class and ID? Yeah, they're class and ID. Very good. Thank you for repeating back the same words to me. What are they? Attributes. Gosh darn right. And greeting and main would be the attribute values. So hello world would be the content. In that case, text content. Very good. We learned a little bit about selector syntax, which is the syntax for identifying elements to style in CSS. Also how we grab them off the page using JavaScript, or one of the ways we can do that anyway. So if we wanted to select this element by the element name, the type of element, what would that selector look like? Just by the element name. Just P, right? If we wanted to do it by just its ID, what would that be? Hash main would do. Yep. If we wanted to do it by both hash and, by element name and ID, Brendan? P hash main. Yes, indeed. Now, we didn't actually end up selecting anything by class yesterday. We talked about the fact that classes, unlike IDs, you can have many elements on the page with the same class. Anybody happen to know the selector syntax for a class? Dot. Very good. Remind me your name, please. Jacob, thank you. Jacob, not Jake, right? Doesn't matter? Okay. Jakob. Jake the Snake. Cool. Jake the Snake it is. All right. Yeah, dot. So dot greeting would select this thing by class name. So the HTML we write gets parsed by the browser and represented in the browser's memory as what? What do we call it? What do we call its representation of the document? Anybody remember? The DOM. That's right. Who said that? Thank you, Ben. The DOM. So all of these functions that we use to manipulate the contents of the page went through the DOM, which we got to by the document object, document dot something, to select all elements on the page that match a given selector. Do you remember what that is? We didn't use it much. We just kind of showed it long enough to say that you can do it. So to select all the matches, do you remember how to do that? Yep. Document.querySelectorAll. Thank you, Nikolai. And I know Celine wanted to answer that too. I saw her hand peeking around Brendan's head. Oh, okay. Oh, I got you. Yeah. Document query selector all would match them all. To select just one element that matches the selector you provide, what would you change? What's that? Take away the all. Thank you, Lisa Marie. Document.querySelector. Find the first match, which may or may not be what you want depending on the selector. But if it's an ID, that's a pretty safe way to do it. And I can't remember if someone in here mentioned it. Someone in one of the two sections yesterday mentioned there is also getElementById, which has been part of the DOM for slightly longer than querySelector. In which case you would leave the hash off. And you could not find it by anything other than ID that way, right? Including tag name. Yep. So if we wanted to get the contents of an element, but only the text, not any element children it had, how do we do that? Grab that element and then call dot what? To just get the text out of it. Yeah, Porter? Dot text content. It's really hard to ask that question without saying, how do we get the text content? Which is just a little too easy. Correct. And if we wanted to get all the contents, including any HTML, inner HTML. And both of those can be both gotten and set. So you can set the text content and set the inner HTML using those same properties. So today, we're going to dig a little more into functions and various ways to create them and various ways to invoke them or call them. And that discussion, by necessity, brings up scope as well and how variables are scoped, which means we will learn for real what the difference between var and let and const are. And we're going to talk about objects. Those of you who suffered through all the code wars problems discovered that you had to know about objects to do the last several. And we learned that the Code Academy tutorial no longer covers objects. So I hope that was fun. So we'll talk about JavaScript objects, which are a big part of what we're going to do for pretty much the whole rest of the time, because nearly everything is an object of one kind or another. Array are objects. Objects are objects, believe it or not. DOM elements are objects. Numbers and strings, not so much, but pretty much everything else. Oh, even strings, but not numbers. Depending. Anyway, yeah, most things are objects. We're going to learn all about them. And they're going to open your mind to new, exciting possibilities. So you psyched? Stoked. Yes, that's right. That's what they say today in the new parlance. All right, let's do it.